Oh, absolutely brutal. If you get it up to just rank 2, the doubling effect of doing 1 mana, 6 damage a lot of the time is just too much for Mage to handle. So they need those very, very high tempo starting hands with like Font of Power, Devolving Missiles to just lock down the board, or very often the damage is just too high from the Paladin. And so now for Che0nsu, we see the expected mulligan in first day of school, but also Kazakus. There's a lot of emphasis placed on this card, I feel like, by the aggro Paladin players, even to the point where they're including Talon in their lists. So I guess, in a way, it's not surprising to see it kept in the mulligan.
True. I mean, Kazakus kind of locks up the middle game. It's a similar argument to keeping Warsong in Hunter, but it feels counterintuitive to running Talon in the deck because Talon, if you play that, the next ideal turn, if not turn 4, to play Kazakus is often when you have 9 mana, so you can go Kazakus into the immediate 5-cost Golem here. Maybe the Talon is just there for insurance if you don't immediately hit the Kazakus, but what Che0nsu did hit is possibly the best 1-drop off of his first day of school. Flame Imp already taking down TIZS a notch, and the Oh My Yogg protecting it here, potentially.
Yeah, hopefully. It gets Spectral Sight, which I think actually just overdraws him a card here, so not the best of outcomes. But yeah, a little bit awkward for Che0nsu now that he can't get the Northwatch Commander to activate and draw cards from his deck. But I think you just play it here anyway. Your mana is spoken for the next few turns. I want a 3-4 on the board and to keep hitting them.
Agreed. I think the health on this is so important to help you play around Combustion, and Che0nsu very smartly positions it in the middle here. He has the Kazakus and a turn 5 guaranteed, so while the Oh My Yogg and Righteous Protector are looking not so powerful for the follow-up, I think Paladin does have to be all in as soon as possible.
An Imprisoned Observer, it's, you know, traditionally one of the more powerful cards in any deck it's included, or I guess discovered in. But even then, this is really, really slow. If Che0nsu had any kind of buff or damage ramp, TIZS could be in a lot of trouble here, and potentially Kazakus could offer that if it gets +2/+2.
That is the big one here, but already the first keyword pick is a bit tricky for Che0nsu because Divine Shield, obviously, it gives the minion the most durability, but I'm looking at the stealth here. It ensures that barring a clear into Devolving Missile, something like that, you can hit for another 5 the next turn, and that is looking pretty good to me, but he misses on the minion buffs.
He misses on everything good here. You would rather, like, copy this minion, brilliant. Draw cards, okay, that's fine. +2/+2 is the best. These are the 3 worst options. This was very unlucky.
True. If he did take stealth, it's not like the spell damage really helps, and you can't really set up any fancy combos with Kazakus and Paladin compared to, say, Rogue. But maybe just the freeze would be decent here, because Che0nsu is really not concerned about trading from this point on.
Refreshing Spring Water, for the first time in Hearthstone history, is not very good here, because it's just doesn't have enough cards in hand. It looks like maybe it's just burning the coin? You don't get that mana back.
Correct. It only goes back up to 4. So it looks like he is just going for the Raz, which is a partial setup for the Imprisoned Observer. I think TIZS is very much just saying here, if you got the +2/+2, I lose anyway. And I think that's a reasonable way to go about it.
Assuming he picked deal 3 damage twice, though, which he did, the Golem here is not bad. It can target the same minion 2 times, so it just deletes the Raz from the other side of the board.
Very useful. 3 of his minions will get cleared up by the Observer once it reveals itself next turn, but the Greater Golem has Divine Shield to partially protect itself. So Che0nsu can just put TIZS down to 10 here.
Oh, does it not?
10.
Oh, my mistake, sorry. I thought it could target the same minion 2 times. I'm losing my mind here.
No worries. In any case, the problem still stands that if TIZS clears this board, Che0nsu has a big problem pushing Burst here because the only actual non-minion based damage he runs in the deck is Hammer of the Naru, which is a 2-of to be fair, but currently not present, and his card draw is rather slow, needs to have a minion on board.
And so now at this point, you can look obviously at the ring toss to try and find the Ice Barrier if you just need to gain a little bit of extra health. But in terms of stopping damage to the face, Vaporize no longer in standard, Flame Ward no longer able to clear off any of this damage. I think you just end up on Fireball in the end instead.
I agree. I mean, that was a pretty unfortunate draw for TIZS here. I was fully expecting him to have hit at least Combustion or Devolving Missiles by this point, but all of the removal options have been expensive, which means Che0nsu gets to land the Hand of a Doll. He can put TIZS at a range where 2 swings of the hammer get through. Or a single Conviction is just lethal. Sorry, 1 off.
Very close. Very, very close. But how do you get over this last hurdle here? I'm looking at Yogg into Goody 2 Shields is tempting. The Righteous Protector as well, I suppose, is kind of interesting just to try and protect this commander.
Yeah, I really like the look of the Righteous Protector here. He can even preemptively drop the Crab Rider. The shield and taunt on that is very annoying for Mage to deal with, and I think Che0nsu last turn probably had a solid read on there being no missiles. Otherwise, TIZS would have gone for a more efficient clear than what he did last turn. But the real important thing here is Che0nsu set up the Yogg, which makes TIZS's problems compound even more.
I mean, that's a decent card to get, even if it's yogged away, just because now he gets to play some of the other cards in his hand.
Che0nsu looking very excited there. Okay. Well, he still has to think about, could this be Noble Sacrifice? That is in standard. Che0nsu, of course, doesn't see what the Yogg secret turned into. Oh, he whiffs on the barrier, though.
Which does mean this is just game, and you would have to imagine that Che0nsu is going to test through all this correctly. You test for the Noble Sacrifice, and then you hit face for 5.
Absolutely. This is not a deck that has any spells that you can afford to say, I don't need to hit you in the face, I'm just going to wait till I draw my Wicked Stab or something like that. Paladin absolutely needs to power their way through, and Che0nsu's just like, it's lethal, right?
He couldn't believe it when nothing happened. He was like, something's gone wrong, right? This is a visual bug. I can't just win the game. But yeah, with no other mage secrets that trigger when you attack face, if it's not barrier, you just win the game. And TIZS there just helping him along a little bit. It's like, you know what, let me get that one for you, buddy. I'll just concede for you to end that one a little bit quicker, as a big win is found. Getting the win with the Paladin, I think, is a really nice start to the matchup, because it is, in my opinion, a significantly weaker deck than the secret Libram Paladin we saw beforehand. And so just getting it over the finish line with that very cool mulligan of Kazakus into the 5-cost Golem, even though it didn't go the way he hoped it would, it was a clever mitigation of damage by Che0nsu.
Very true. You can see the power that the Oh My Yoggs also had in this situation. Sorry, only one ended up coming into play, but even if you negate 1 Devolving Missiles, that can be all it takes, because Paladin's damage snowballs so quickly. And like you said, compared to Libram Paladin, it doesn't quite have that strong card draw engine tool or consistency, so they really do need to go all in right from the get-go.
Big win right out the gate for Che0nsu, and with his Druid banned away, right, as we can see there. It was an interesting decision from TIZS to ban it at all, given that, again, in week 1, what was it even at? It was a pretty pathetic win rate, 36.8, I think it was, at the end of last week, across all the regions, which is obviously pitiful over a reasonable sample size. But TIZS clearly respects the power of it, as he's lining up here for himself and banning it away from his opponent. I wonder what it is in specific about the Druid that piques his interest.
Well, personally, I'm still not a huge fan of this deck, but we have to respect it because half the field in APAC is bringing it, and also pretty much this exact list, at least everybody who's made it to stream today. And just thinking about it in terms of if they thought it was good enough last week, where there were 3 decks that got nerfed and even weaker going into this week, you can kind of theorize that maybe the Druid is just stocks up now, especially since Libram Paladin is largely been replaced by the new Aggro Paladin, and they have less consistent removal options, in my opinion. I think Token Druid can capitalize on that matchup. I'm still iffy about Druid versus Rogue, but given that TIZS was not bringing Rogue in the first place, he maybe didn't expect it in the field, and I can certainly see the Druid getting things done against Mage too.
Very true. This priest list, however, for Che0nsu, I think, as we've seen traditionally, should have a pretty good time of things here. It's not the most traditional list that we've seen, a little bit heavier on the top end, with Yogg, Ysera, and a Light Shower Elemental, very interestingly, as a way to close things out, which does make sense in a metagame with a lot of aggro paladins, just as a big anti-aggro finisher. But at the same time, for the most part, the early game removal is all still there. Double Condemn, Samuro, Zyrella, even just these kind of early tempo plays like Sethic and Wanemaker are a big deal in shutting down the Token Druid.
Yes, he does have that Raise Dead in combination with the early game package, which we see some people kind of shun in favor of the Desperate Prayer and also a bit more top end. For Che0nsu here, he kind of has hit the best of both worlds, and he also made room for the Venomous Scorpion, which I think is quickly becoming a staple in control decks of all sorts.
It's just a staple in any deck. It's just a really, really good card. Even in the Rogue that we were testing, that I think, what was it, Lambie series has it in his slightly weird version of Rogue. It just seemed pretty powerful. There's a lot of good spells that you can discover, and with 3 options, you're going to find at least one good outcome.
Light Shower attack for Che0nsu there, but look at this hand from TIZS. That is the juice. Full keep, insta keep, and you absolutely do that. With the Fungal Fortunes and the Glowfly, you're almost certain to be able to build, what, 3-4 boards? And you need far more than just one to stay in the game against Priest.
And look at this. Innovate found, Lightning Bloom found to go alongside it. It's very possibly looking just like a turn 3 Glowfly that, as it currently stands, just may not be answerable.
Very true. I mean, I was looking at the solar eclipse for later on when the, say, Arbor Up becomes important, but I think TIZS is correctly spotting that if you just go in before the Condemn is rank 2, it's tough for Priest to actually deal with that many Glowflies. And had he had gone for a different card, he would have to expend both the coin and Innervate, and now he can just play one spell with the Lightning Bloom and get all the Glowflies.
This is going to be a very interesting one. Che0nsu has some of the very powerful removal spells, like Samuro is just a 1 damage AoE when it comes down, not bad. Condemn, 1 damage AoE, but I think it might just be 1 turn too late.
Yep, I think TIZS is right to go in right now with one of the Power of the Wilds. Fits in the Lunar Eclipse as well. Only 1 minion left, and Che0nsu has assumed a very pensive position.
Yeah, pensive is one way of putting it. What are you even looking for here? Hysteria to clear off a couple of them? I guess a buff for Blademaster Samuro you can get not in a fire anymore? I honestly have no idea how you could even buff it for that cheap. Like, Power Word Feast would be your best for 2 turns time.
I honestly don't know. I was looking at this play that Che0nsu's going for. Samuro right now, you kind of say face up that you have Condemn, but TIZS only has 2 mana next turn, so technically the only other way he can buff their health is with the other Power of the Wild, but shock and horror, it's in hand.
And this play for Che0nsu is very face up. You're using one of your best removal spells to do not that much, and TIZS makes the perfect play around it, leaving one of them at 1 health, all the rest above 2 health, so that Condemn rank 2 is not even close.
Yeah, this is just a blowout here. Che0nsu can delay with Wave of Apathy, but even then, the problem remains for next turn. I think he needs Zyrella or Bust to get rid of this next turn, plus a way to activate the Zyrella. Yeah,
the out there really was second Condemn. If he got that, he was in the game. It would have at least carried on there, but now you're absolutely correct. It needs something far more impactful.
I do appreciate Che0nsu's little expressions. I would have paid money to hear what he said on camera last game when no secrets went off after he attacked. He clearly mouthed something. Is here. Dropping the Gibberling, no big deal. He can just push the same problem that Che0nsu had last turn. I think TIZS doesn't really even need to buff a minion here. I would just continue with the card draw, and he agrees.
Yeah, absolutely. You just make sure 100% that if they do find a way to clear your board, you have the follow-up as well.
It's the other Gibberling, so he absolutely does have board refill, and there is the Pride's Fury to make sure he has enough damage to close out the game next turn.
And I think the Scorpion, even if you find the Condemn, just too expensive now.
Yeah. If it gets you another wave, maybe? Can you stay in it? So you're just gonna go ahead and set up this taunt, which will put him back up to 17 health. Nothing to scoff at, to be fair. But TIZS has a pretty good way to trade this down with Pride's Fury and Adorable Infestation.
When he just has lethal on board, right? Like, he attacks with both them hero power, and then he has 17 damage to close out.
Right.
Pride's Fury also will close out the game as Che0nsu just gets an absolute turnaround smack in the face after that first game because TIZS had the juice. This is what you're supposed to do as Token Druid. Why doesn't everyone else just do it? It looks so easy.
I don't know, Derek. It's hard to be on the coin with both Fungal Fortunes and Glowfly. But when you do get it, the deck sure does look unstoppable. And just like that, TIZS is up to a 2-0 lead. Che0nsu... Oh, sorry. I completely misread the first game. It is 0-1. Yes, so we do have Priest and Mage available for both players. So it's already looking a little bit like last week's meta, but of course the Lunacy is more expensive now.
Right, and that can have a pretty big impact. Against the Priest, I don't think it's quite so much of a deal, obviously. Generally, against the Priest, I do still believe that Deck of Lunacy, you know, not a particularly insightful point, is your best win condition. I think that the burst damage route is a little too inconsistent with all the healing they have available, especially with Light Shower Elemental factored into there as well. But you do have a good amount of time to find it and play it as well. All the pressure that Priest can put down at the start with Sethics, Wand Makers, Man Crick isn't in this list, I think, but anything they can throw down is very easy for the Mage to deal with. So it's just about finding that Lunacy, getting it played, and tempoing out your Grand Slams for the win.
If you should be so lucky. It's also worth noting that I think it's not automatic to run 4 copies of 7 cost cards in Mage anymore, especially since Lunacy has become less of the only good game plan. Mage certainly, if you're still playing the deck post-nerf, you need to believe in the rest of the deck still being decent. Or in the case of Lambi series, you just don't play the Lunacy and play Cthulhu instead. I'm super excited to see if that will work out for him here. But looking at both the Mage lists, they look largely similar, except that Che0nsu has some secrets in there with the Cone of Cold and Netherwind Portal.
Yeah, I am I'm more of a fan of the tempo-based list now, I've got to say. Like, traditionally, I was looking a little more heavily at the versions that were a bit more defensive last week because you wanted to have stronger game against the aggro decks. If they were leaving up Mage, they were probably playing an aggro lineup anyway. Now I think players are a lot more ready to leave up Mage no matter what their strategy is, and you do need a strong backup game plan if you don't hit the Lunacy, which is, namely, in my opinion, making sure that you hit any kind of minion development, and Netherwind Portal is a great way to get that through the use of spells. But even better than all of that is having Lunacy and Springwater in your starting hand, a dream way to get things going for TIZS.
Yes, that is ideal. All he's missing is the flow. And for TIZS, if I recall last week, was he the one that left Mage up once? Maybe it was Give Please, my mistake. But I do recall there was at least a couple players in APAC that seemed to be of the opinion that Priest can get there against Mage, and that was pre-Lunacy nerf. So it's not as though all hope is lost for Che0nsu here. He runs a ton of removal, and sometimes the Lunacy can give you just too much card draw and not enough minion generation. So there's worlds where Che0nsu can grind out past the Lunacy, but TIZS has hit the trifecta of good early game Mage cards now.
So does he just play it in the order that the mana allows? Is this just slamming Cancer's Flow in this turn?
I don't think so. Well, the Runar makes his decision a lot easier, but even if you didn't draw that, I think that you want to stay with the Lunacy before Encounter Slow first, because the 10 cost spells are so good against Priest. I think the chance at a Grand Slam versus like all guaranteed Libram of Hopes is a little too good to pass up.
Elucia here is tempting to at least consider, right? Because you can just delete the coin from their hand, and they can't play anything in response. Obviously, he can't play the Lunacy, which is the unfortunate thing here. But if he can just go coin-devolving missiles, then I think you would consider that probably about the best you're going to get from Elucia in the matchup.
I mean, this would be, I think, a snap Elucia if he just had a turn 4 to play. The problem is, Elucia here, yes, it doesn't really give TIZS much to do, but then Che0nsu's follow-up is not great. So all you did was delay Lunacy and literally just put a 1-3 on the board is the way I see it. So I think Elucia might have a bit more utility post deck of Lunacy, but I wouldn't hate the play. If Che0nsu could have somehow bought himself a turn to get the Ogremancer down unchallenged, I think it's absolutely worth it, but as it stands, a little bit too expensive.
Okay, yeah, I get the point. Like, it's probably not going to do much later on, but it's basically actually just doing nothing here apart from delaying it for one turn if they have it.
Yeah.
So maybe if they draw a bunch of cards but don't play anything, then you can get a cheeky Elucia later on.
Well, this is already looking like a disaster for Che0nsu because we talked about how the nerf to Lunacy makes it so that aggro decks can maybe capitalize on the slow start from Mage, but Priest is not an aggro deck. Che0nsu did not hit his early game minions. He does run Sethic here. Goes for the Elucia. I'm not sure why, but probably just because his hand does literally nothing on 4 mana. So he's saying, I'm going to have a do-nothing turn, so you have a do-nothing turn too.
Yeah, I think it's just to stop them from going Springwater, bunch of stuff, so that your Ogremancer maybe can stick. This is a setup to just guarantee yourself almost certainly a clear board with the Ogremancer, which is, you know, about as good of a Elucia as you're going to get. I think this was a very clever time to play it down.
True. Now that you put it that way, it seems like this is the exact thing I was talking about, but I just failed to recognize it. One turn later, he still gets to put the Ogremancer down by virtue of not having drawn anything good when he gave his hand to TIZS. Probably just the Brain Freeze and use it here. Oh, interesting. So TIZS here is choosing to delete a good removal spell from Che0nsu's hand at the expense of giving him a Discover, which is on average not too strong. I say that and then they get the Jandis, right? But
yeah, I think that's fine.
I think it's fine from TIZS too.
Right, so the plan has quote-unquote paid off. He has the Ogremancer online. TIZS did just top deck Skull though, which I think laughs in the face of these skeletons that are being summoned.
Yes, and the fact that TIZS went for the Lunacy before the flow means that because he is running a deck that is a bit heavier on the 4-cost slot with 2 Ring Toss and 2 Fireball, there's a lot of these 7-cost spells in his deck. Celestial Alignment is not necessarily what you want to get off of them, but again, there's so much removal on the 7-cost Cycle of Hatred, always premium, for example.
He has the Nourish though. This is like the dream opportunity to play Celestial Alignment. I will say at the moment, there's some pretty funky stuff going on with Celestial.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a bug, but like if any cards have been reduced, you can end up with a hand that costs full of 0 cards instead of 1-cost cards.
Actually, I mean, assuming there's no bugs, it does look like a good play here because he can like, immediately nourish and get the mana, and then next turn play. Sorry, he gets to play. Not yet 4-cost, right? Because he goes to 0, and he goes to 2, and then 3. So it's still 1 dead turn. So I can understand TIZS delaying because in that dead turn he will be taking at least 7 damage.
Oh, but he could have gone like Nourish to ramp up and then, you know, Springwater to refill his mana because they would all cost 1 and gain him +3 mana every time it's played. Like, again, if you don't know exactly how it's going to work, I could see the problems, but it did look really, really strong there.
It certainly was tempting, especially since Che0nsu would also just have dead turns. Like, it's reasonable to say I can just take 7 for a turn because after that, every turn from this point onward is just exponentially stronger than Che0nsu's. TIZS going for a safer approach here, and he has hit some minion generation for sure.
So with the extra Springwater, you can go Force of Nature, summon the copies of them as Death Rattle, can't remember the name of that card, Psych Split, Invigoration, whatever that card is called as well. All these cards I haven't learned the name of, that all buff your hand and deck, and then Survival of the Fittest at the end to make them all a trillion.
Yes. That seems very powerful. Vivid Spores is the one that lets them summon copies, but I did not know the name of Invigorating Sermon either, to be fair. Fits in the Rancor as well, so he can get rid of all the Ogremancer tokens and get some armor while he's at it.
Yeah, I mean, he can't play the Survival anymore, but I guess that's fine. it's still absurdly strong.
Yeah, he will have a board after this with the Spore. 2 layers of Spores, why not? And now he chooses to play the alignment, which is very reasonable. Che0nsu literally cannot do anything about this on 1 mana.
He can palm readings, which then reduces the cost of his spells, I guess. And play Condemn, that does nothing. Wow, what a turn.
Did they patch that also? Condemn is rank 2 right now. It doesn't derank after alignment, right?
Oh.
Like something like that happened before, but I can read the card right now and it says deal 2.
Yeah, it does.
So, palm reading? Sure. Alternatively, just Ysera.
Sarah and
I have no mana to play the Awakens yet, though.
I wonder.
Oh, that's true, actually.
And,
you
and
can't even
hand
go
space as well, yeah.
palm readings. Yeah, like you could play it and then just go Nightmare and trade away a couple of the minions that just then come back with more power because of the double Vivid.
Yeah. Yeah, it might actually be just as the Keymaster Alabaster here. And it would cost 1, and then because of the alignment and also because of the Alabaster, redundant but fun.
Oh yeah, true. I guess it'll cost 1 squared. Was that Dire Frenzy?
Oh no!
I mean, at least you know your opponent has a bad draw as well. It's a small amount of solace, I suppose.
Yeah, but look at this now. The survival on this turn, Che0nsu can get out of this game.
7/28 is just lethal, I think, right?
This area is off limits.
Yes.
Just too much.
Okay. That was a quick one. Every game so far has been very quick there.
Yeah, it's been very, very one-sided. I mean, it does still just show, obviously, that in this matchup, if you hit Deck of Lunacy and then you hit Skull as the first card off of it, you are going to win that game of Hearthstone. I appreciate what Che0nsu was doing there. I think his setup with Alusha was very well timed. The Ogremancer kind of looked like a bit of a nuisance, actually. If there hadn't been very powerful draws thereafter, as you are obviously expecting to happen, it was possible at the other side for Che0nsu to have gotten the win with his setup, but the vast majority of the time they're just going to get everything they need, develop a huge board, blow you out the game. It's what Mage does. Who cares if they have to spend 4 mana to set it up instead of 2? They're still cheating about 1 billion over the course of the game.
Absolutely. The one big question I had for TIZS was whether alignment was supposed to come down 1 turn earlier, but I think overall TIZS took the safer route where he doesn't necessarily give Che0nsu a turn to push 7 plus whatever 1 cost minion, big minion that Che0nsu would play on that turn. And for TIZS, he did take the card draw, and if he got pretty much any minion generation, I think it makes the alignment even better following up because he already had the survival in hand, and that's exactly how the game turned out. So he is now 2 games up against Che0nsu, who still has a mage of his own.
Which, taking a look at the list could turn things around fairly quickly. First of all, though, we are going to go to the Priest Mirror. Obviously, Control Priests have been one of the most infinite mirror matches over the entirety of Hearthstone. In the previous expansion, I think they sped up a lot. It became a lot more minion focused. You were really beating down your opponent. I do think things have slowed down a bit again here. Obviously, it's very low curving, not particularly aggressive, but TIZS does have a couple things working in his favor. Man Crit can be a very nice way to get that early pressure rolling. But outside of that, do you have much experience in the matchup? Are you expecting this to go super long, or do you think this will reach a decisive end in the mid-game?
I do think this still has very much the potential to go to fatigue, but just comparing the 2 lists, Che0nsu's has got quite a lot more meat in there with the Yogg-Saron, which TIZS is simply just not running, but Che0nsu also still has his Ysera, and the double Ogre-Mancers, I think, will be very annoying for TIZS to deal with. In terms of the early game package, they're actually running the very similar Raised Dead plus Sethic combo. Sethic is another one that's such a big deal to generate value in this matchup. And for TIZS, because he has teched in the Ooze in there and the Holy Smite to make himself a bit better against aggro, I think on average, Che0nsu should be at a big advantage here.
does feel that way. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can turn this around. Again, as I said, Mankrik is nice just to throw down and get a 3-10 later on. And Sethics really are the big unknown in the matchup. That's the one main way of generating a lot of random spells that Priest really thrives on. Because there's so many buff spells in Priest at the moment. Powered Fortitude, Powered Feast, Psych Split, Apotheosis. A lot of ways that you can ramp up that pressure, which is a very big deal because, again, like you said, it's likely to go to fatigue, or very well could at the very least. But if you can get a big lead in the mid game, the removal from Priest against big minions is not actually that potent. If you just have one big minion in play, Hysteria doesn't get the job done, Soul Mirror isn't in the deck, the Plague of Death doesn't exist anymore. It's fairly niche removal. It's not omni-purpose anymore.
It's true. The single big minion is much better against Priest than it was previously. And if I used to think that Priest just had good removal all the way around, but when I started playing from the Priest perspective, I realized, oh, I was just playing really badly into Hysteria. So these two players certainly going to be more experienced here. Che0nsu keeping the Scorpid, should not be surprised to see that TIZS is coining out his own one here.
And this hand for TIZS here, this is not looking like a control Priest hand right now. This is looking like a miracle Priest hand with Gift of Luminance, Snap Pick, double palm readings to reduce everything down. He can get a really nice chain of spells developed here.
Yeah, this looks like a way to possibly shore up the value that he's lacking, at least in the base list versus Che0nsu. But Che0nsu did pick up one of the best dragons also in terms of value generation from his Draconic studies. So it will be on TIZS to time the Sethic well and try to milk the most value he can get out of the Gift of Luminance.
Flash Heal is a questionable pick there. I was kind of interested in just picking up an extra buff, even if it was a little more expensive, because it would have been reduced twice by the palm readings. But at the very least, this Flash Heal is just guaranteed 2 more spells off of the Sethic, so definitely not wrong at all. Sorry, just a different approach to what I was expecting.
It being a targeted spell is the main thing on TIZS' mind here, and he's going in right here. I do like this timing because he got the Flash Heal, and also because this is pre-Ogremancer turn. Makes it less convenient, certainly, for Che0nsu to just plop down the only watch post still in the game.
Yeah, very true. Double power infusion as well. There I was saying he should pick it when he just gets 2 of them generated off of the Sethics. Obviously fantastic cards to find if either of these 2 minions stick on the board.
And already this is such a pain for Che0nsu because with the Sethic Gift of Luminance combo, it's hard to deal with even one for most decks. Dealing with both is near impossible. This is not the shape that Hysteria can just get rid of them immediately, but he kind of knows that if he plays Ogremancer, he's generating pretty much infinite targets for TIZS to just cycle all spells with Sethic on, and that's a scary proposition as well.
Right, which is why he's quite clearly looking at Hysteria Condemn. You'd have to imagine by how he's mousing over his cards here, which makes sense. You know, we've seen TIZS' list. It's light on the heavy side. These Hysterias probably aren't going to find all too much of a use.
I agree. I think it's completely worth it to go for it here, especially now that Che0nsu's just discovered even more redundancy on his removal spells. His biggest concern is to just get rid of value where he can from TIZS' hand, because he is just getting settled in for the long game.
Did use the cheaper one there at 0 mana for basically no reason, which you know, is a minor optimization, but it could come into play, obviously, given that his mana could be spoken for next turn with Skeletal Drake, and then who knows on subsequent turns, depending on what dragons he gets.
True. I would even hear an argument for Ogremancer next turn if there is just no minion from TIZS, because it's so powerful on an empty board.
Very true.
Shadowward Ruin is the pick for TIZS here. Certainly there's more threats in Che0nsu's deck compared to his that can get hit by that, like the Yogg-Saron and Light Shower Elemental.
Just kind of weird plays so far, though. Like, TIZS wasn't going to overdraw on that turn, so there wasn't really a need to tempo out the apathy there, unless you're afraid of a Lucia, would be my best guess, but then it's just deleted anyway. So even though the game plan, I think, is for the most part on the point for our players, there's just been minor optimizations that could have been made along the way.
through. I wonder if dumping hand space that far in advance is actually a consideration, because I don't think TIZS would do something like that uncharacteristically.
It just costs 0 though. You can do it at any point. There was literally no reason to do it.
Range indeed.
Yeah.
TIZS, however, did have to use 2 cards to get rid of that first Skeletal Drake, which sucks for him. Che0nsu's got a second one, but TIZS has picked up a very good card to give him removal combined with Holy Smite next turn.
Yeah, it's a nice way to contest the board. The big thing for Che0nsu, though, is he's actually just getting some pretty meaty dragons. The Dragonmaw Skystalker, the Dream Drake, these are awkward minions for TIZS to deal with. The thing to pay attention, though, again, as you so astutely pointed out at the start, is the Hysteria. It's making sure that you are as resilient to that as possible, but also, how do you dump enough cards from your hand to keep the value rolling?
Well, Apotheosis and Auspicious Spirits certainly are strong plays that don't fill up his hand even more, but Che0nsu is greeting it. All right. It's true, he did just see 1 Hysteria, so it's not the worst play in the world to go for the Sky Stalker here. As long as he doesn't play the Scorpid, I'm okay with that. I think it's not uber punished by Hysteria.
Yeah, the Dragonmaw Skystalker is awkward. It also affords a full clear on this turn. I mean, who knows? Maybe even now it's just Apathy Condemned to free up some space in hand, or Dream Drake as well. This is just as a measure to clear out the hand, again, whilst also playing around Hysteria. This I am fine with.
Oh, wow. Alex draws this for everyone. All right, so for TIZS, Hysteria would put the Drake to 4, still out of range of a single Holy Smite, which is annoying.
Could, of course, be Condemn and then Alexstrasza instead of the Holy Smite if he wanted to clear off the Bone Dragon again. Or the Skeletal Dragon, sorry.
I can see that. Also just lets him get the first big threat onto the board. There's also an argument to trying to greed it a bit and set up for a bigger Zyrella, but the problem with that is Che0nsu's Skeletal Dragon is just generating him more value every turn you leave it on the board. So I'm interested in getting rid of at least that, if not the whole board. Like, I could still see just Alex Holy Smite as a play here.
If you're too precious about that as your removal options, you could, of course, have gone Scorpion and then Hysteria in order to guarantee a clear at least on the Skeletal Dragon. So many ways to go about it this turn.
In the end, he opts for Sethic, which is actually a good spot. I did not see this right away, but this allows him to swing, clear the whole board, and regenerate some value. I think it ticks all the boxes.
Okay, yeah, I like this turn. The fact that it's a 4/9 just makes it very, very difficult to deal with on the other side of the board. Likely to get a bit more generation afterwards as well.
Wow. Obviously, Che0nsu's first problem here is getting rid of the Sethic, and he can do that with the Hysteria here. Yep. I was honestly looking at Idol of Yashiraj just because value, but Soul Mirror is an ace in the hole that they will hardly ever play around because it's not naturally in the deck, and that can give him value as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think the thing that is missing from his hand isn't value at the moment, it's good removal, which Soul Mirror absolutely fills that gap.
And he did just get even more value off of that race head with the double Scorpid. Scorpid is just the best card in Hearthstone right now.
It's pretty insane.
Oh.
Ooh. That's interesting.
He is not naturally in TIZZ's deck, but it can get him to a point where if he wants, he can chain threats. But given that I did talk about this matchup likely going to Fatigue, my first instinct would be Onyxia here.
Yeah, I think I agree too. I mean, it's one of those things that's so difficult to correctly analyze in Hearthstone, because if we were to run this through a simulation a bunch of times with perfect play, we would figure out one player just kind of wins in Fatigue the majority of the time. It's so difficult to know that with the slight variations in the list. So maybe for TIZS, if he knows he's going to lose in Fatigue anyway, he should go for Malagos just to deliberately draw his deck, speed up his aggression so that he can try and win on tempo, as you said. But in the end, Onyxia now with its summoning 1/1s at the end of every turn does afford a little bit more of a consistent, aggressive game plan. So it's definitely a reasonable way to go that does still apply that value and pressure that we were looking for.
I think because it gave him the option to have yet another heavy hitter dragon, it's a bit more realistic for TIZS to go for a fatigue game plan here. He does pick up a nice condemn into initiation turn, gets a Skystalker of his own, but Che0nsu has that second Soul Mirror in his back pocket, so whatever TIZS generates, at the very least, Che0nsu can replicate. Scorpid City, Derek.
They just keep on coming, and there are a lot of high-value spells in Priest. Raise Dead, Initiation, both fantastic extra value generators. Idol of Yasharj would be huge. Any buff spell, Draconic Studies. There are so many ways to add extra value to your deck in Priest at the moment. It's just insane how it keeps on going and going and going.
I wonder.
The focused will, if he wants it, is definitely going to make the Skystalker on the other side more appealing to deal with.
Yeah.
But I mean, Che0nsu has just consistently gone for value, value, value. Every single decision I think that he could have made has been the greediest option, and that really goes to show you where his mindset is at in terms of how to play the matchup. He's certainly not starved for health. He can afford to take a couple damage here, and he does have Samuro here, but without Apotheosis, it starts to get a little bit scary.
Yeah, I think it's just been a very smart approach from the matchup overall from Che0nsu. It's been greedy, absolutely, but it's been smart in the way he approaches it. Like going for Soul Mirror over Idol of Yasharj, I think it shows good understanding of what you need. You need to be able to make sure that if they do make an aggressive push, you can clear it. But Soul Mirror does still afford some amount of value, as we can see here. It got him his own Skystalker, Man Cricket, a bit of pressure on the board. And thereon after, you know, as you said, another Raised Dead. That's probably 2 more Scorpids with the way this game has gone so far. And then he can get more Raised Deads, infinite replicating Scorpids to close out the game. Sounds like my nightmare.
True, that does sound like nightmare fuel. I kind of thought that after Galakrond rotated, Priest would have less infinite value generation.
Yeah.
I was sorely mistaken, but for TIZS, this was quite clean Zyrella turn. He can take this value trade as well and heal back up, or he can go on the offensive.
Yeah, I mean, it still gets in the full heal, right, with the feast effect, and just puts more stuff on the board.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also like freeing up the hand space so he can just play Ysera, get all the stuff.
Well, Soul Mirror worked a treat last turn. We could just try that again here for Che0nsu to get his own buffed up Skystalker yet again.
Taking 7 though, I mean, he could just condemn after that, although the condemn feels like the most flexible removal spell he has at the moment. He's gonna go fishing first. Oh, Gift of Luminance plus Hysteria is...
Right. It's pretty good. Like, in a way, you don't want to up the chance that it will hit a Scorpion, because then it's less likely to clear the other minions first, if that's going to be your game plan of how to clear. But Gift of Luminance, I mean, even if it's not on the Scorpion, the Ogremancer, the Skeletal Dragon, the Light Shower Elemental, there's some good targets.
In the end, Che0nsu going for yet another greedy turn. This, if I'm TIZS, I'm going to see this as my window to come back into the game. Like, Ysera for Dream on the 6/6 here is certainly tempting.
Oh, yeah. This is the aggressive push you need to make. This is what I was talking about. He didn't go it through the Malagos, obviously, but he knows that this is starting to look like a losing battle. Massively down on value. He needs to go for the throat here and close this one out.
Unfortunately for TIZS, doesn't quite have a cheap removal on the Scorpion. He's still going to clear it to respect Apotheosis and things of that nature, but he still has set up a board that is difficult yet again for just Soul Mirror to deal with.
So I'm looking at ways...
If we go Soul Mirror and then Hysteria on the opposing Ysera, which a lot of the time clears off... well, no, it's going to be 2 Yseras on the board and 2 7/1s, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the other way around is just better.
Yeah, I think just starting with Hysteria, it some of the time just clears off half the Ysera. This was like the bad outcome, I suppose. But it still massively lowers the amount of damage on the board. And then you could even just go for Skeletal Dragon here if you were so inclined.
Oh, it's so scary. They have Nightmare and Awakens.
It's a little scary.
But Yeah, but the alternative just doesn't clear anything, right? The Condemn is short of damage to get rid of even the 3-4 here. So TIZS bought himself a window. The window is still open, and he needs to find the lethal soon.
He's stuck halfway through. Someone needs to find the butter to try and squeeze him through it at this point. Because if he was ever going to win this game, I think this is the one chance for him to do so.
Just looking for ways to potentially push everything face. He could Nightmare the 3-4 and then Awakens, but it's still lacking some damage to get rid of the Skeletal Dragon. He's going fishing, gets another Ysera. My goodness.
Wow. I mean, that is huge. Being able to go for another Dream to sap away a big taunt. The Light Shower Elemental that he knows to still be in hand is a very big deal. Smite?
It's so close with Smite. If it were 1 damage more, I think that was the pick with Ysera Awakens and just like push a bunch of damage to the face here. Not quite an option at the moment. If he played Scorpid, there might be some Hysteria play on his mind right now.
It's just interesting. On both of those picks there, TIZS had more aggressive options. He picked the Draconic Studies over Apotheosis and then Auspicious Spirits over a Holy Smite. Like, there were 2 opportunities which could have buffed his board and pushed more damage, but instead he's playing a slightly longer value game plan instead of pressing his advantage right now. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily correct. I think maybe the best way to go about it was just to go as aggressive as humanly possible right out the gate.
It certainly seemed like that was more in line with his previous game plan, but no matter which way I looked at it, getting rid of the Skeletal Drake was a big problem for him here. Just not the right shape. Oh!
Wait, that would be game, but you can't target Laughing Sister with the Nightmares. That would be 8 extra damage to close out the game. Ysera Awakens no longer goes face, if you're thinking that. That is not a lethal out here. Oh!
I must consider.
But he can just Ysera again and dream the... Is it worth it to dream this? It takes Che0nsu's entire turn basically to play it again, and yes, he can either heal or remove the Laughing Sister, but it's slow, right? I think it's worth it.
Definitely looks that way. Alternatives.
All he wants to do is ensure that he has a Nightmare target for next turn, and Che0nsu has no Apotheosis target.
Oh man, this is so close. Does this come down to Yogg at the end of it all for Che0nsu?
Right, it really might. The Soul Mirror is just not the right shape to deal with the Mankrik.
Yeah.
Or the Ysera, or the Laughing Sister. These all have so much health on them compared to their attack.
He's not going to get the draw.
And so is it all crumbling apart for Che0nsu? He misses the Apple with the Samuro combo. That hurts so much. It might just be a Yogg.
I mean, he could even have gone Samuro, Apo, and then Gift of Luminance as well for even more clear on that turn.
Light Shower, Gift of Luminance is something to think about.
True. It's a nice spot.
Both dreams, yeah. And so, the Awakens immediately kills off Laughing Sister, and you cannot buff that, so you kind of accept that's going to die if he is going to Awakens in some capacity this turn.
So you can go double, you can bump with the Laughing Sister into the Divine Shield, Awakens, heal your Mankrik, Awakens, they heal for 12 up to 17, you then have 8 plus your 7, so you can deal 15 damage plus the Apotheosis is 1 mana over. I've spent 11 mana on this turn to find lethal. It's really close, though. It's really, really close. Oh, no, wait. You can miss the heal and Nightmare first. This is lethal. You trade. You go double Nightmare on your Mankrik.
Yes, and then you go for...
Double Ysera Awakens.
The Nightmares give you +4 apiece. Isn't that a bit off, then?
Oh, it heals for 8. Sorry, I was accounting for healing for 6. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I thought I had it there.
Very close. I mean, hardly anyone is playing this card right now, but yes, Light Shower Elemental does restore 8 upon its Death Rattle, and that bought Che0nsu just a little bit more time to come back into this here, but he can now Soul Mirror and immediately get the heal off of the Ysera, but is that good enough with the Condemn? It certainly does look good.
It's pretty disgusting. Doesn't give a full clear. Mankrik will still be knocking about, and there is still double Nightmare, but it's so much heal for Che0nsu.
And it's so much board presence. He gets to stick Ysera, his own Mankrik, his own Laughing Sister, his own Sethic Veil Weaver, and he's still hiding behind this one other Light Shower Elemental. And he has knowledge of all cards in TIZZ's hand except 3, if he's been paying perfect attention.
True. And he'll actually know that all but 1 are just generated cards at this point as well.
Not even bothered about healing his own face here, and the Light Shower is pretty sick to even heal up the rest of his board. This card is insane.
Yeah, that's pretty disgusting.
He could even take the trade right now. I think that's fine. If he was afraid of silence in some capacity, but surely he knows the taunt was valuable last turn, so probably better to keep it on board, all things considered. TIZZ needs this Awakens to even stay in the game at this point.
That's so much healing, oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What does he do here now? TIZZ is not running Yogg in his list. I'm trying to look over this deck list so I can click something looking for, but nothing looks good enough.
Yeah, I think it's all just falling apart. And again, looking back on these decisions, I was critical of TIZZ for, like going for the Draconic Studies, going for not picking the Holy Smite. Everything he did actually allowed this aggressive route to push. He found the extra Ysera, which got him the extra Dream, the extra Nightmare. It got so close to pushing that lethal damage. Just wasn't quite there, and I don't know, I'm sure if we looked back deeply enough we could find something extra, but all the decisions he made there, I think just were the ways to get the most amount of damage through.
Up until that one point, and it really does just take a couple turns for Priest to turn the corner before they are back up to full here. And now Che0nsu, again, he knows most of what's in TIZZ's hand. In terms of scary generated dragons, I guess another Ysera would be top of the list. Alternatively, Deathwing to a certain extent. If he's not careful, he's actually out of single target removal. But there is a Shadow Word Death now.
Yeah. This is going to sting for TIZZ, a double Scorpid yet again, and I mean, palm readings to reduce, yeah, literally nothing in hand, apart from the palm readings and the spell you generate, sure, why not?
So I was looking at the Shadow Word Death. I feel like Che0nsu's real only fear at the moment is a generated Deathwing. At this point, he just needs to chill.
I guess you're right, actually.
Take all the trades. He should win in fatigue in almost every situation because his hand is too expensive for an Illusia to really blow out the value.
Samuro Apo plus Nightmare if you want as well is obviously a complete sweep on the board. I mean, maybe you don't even Apo. You could just go Emerald Drake and Ooze instead. Yeah.
Yeah, push onto the board, follow up with Onyxia. This is the only thing that TIZZ's hand really does. It's play onto the board and pray that Che0nsu is out of removal. He has seen 2 Soul Mirrors, and I don't even know how many Condemns by this point, so it is a last-ditch effort. Che0nsu has the Grey Bow with the Ogremancer. This is such an annoying combo. Hello?
That is so annoying. You get skeletons that give Grey Bows that give skeletons that, yeah.
It's a nightmare to even think about. You just drop the Onyxia and call it a day, I guess.
Oh, you can dream it away.
Yeah, the dream. Good spot from TIZZ. I forgot that he had another Ysera. This is a natural one in his deck. He generated 2 before this. Which goes to show just how insane Draconic Studies is these days. Nothing much to fear here. I think Che0nsu could comfortably just take the trade, play Alex Straza on, I guess, the Ysera on the other side, because he's kind of committed to just grinding out to fatigue at this point.
Yeah, you're afraid of then Nightmare trade. I guess that would be fine, though, if that happened, to be honest.
Palm reading is okay, too. Like, he could make a similar play, but instead of the Alex, just set up the Ogremancer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The Blackwing looks pretty good here.
Yeah, I like the Blackwing. It's just a way to kind of close out the game without letting them get anything onto the board.
One thing Che0nsu lacks is spot removal here, and that lets him have continuous spot removal if he can just find the window to play it. And that could be this turn.
Sounds good to me.
I have no master.
TIZS has such a tall mountain to climb from here. I don't know how he gets there. Awakens. Trade sounds awful to me. Like, he doesn't get to play the Onyxia. I'm at a point where, if I'm TIZS, I might be desperate enough to just drop the Onyxia and say, if you have yet another board clear, good job.
Yeah. That with Apotheosis and heal 5/9. Now I don't even think you can get there. You're not damaged enough to allow the Xyrella to clear off the Blackwing here.
Right. If it's not Onyxia, I can also just see you play all the Ysera minions. It's just some final push onto the board here, right? I don't think TIZS can afford to play around removal anymore. Yes, the Blackwing will get rid of one of them, but kind of have to bite the bullet.
Yeah, it's like Ysera awakens and then trade, and then you play the rest of the minions, or, as you said, you can just go all in with the minions and hope that confuses the Blackwing enough. It's as good a chance as any.
Does go for it in the end here. Che0nsu, as we can see, has yet another Condemn rank 3, and he has a Sethic Train to start off the turn.
You always forget that the Blackwing itself can just attack to start off the turn, and then also deal the 9 damage. It's not Ragnaros.
We have Green Rag and Demon Hunter, and we have Neutral Rag and still basically Priest, though.
Very true. Well, even if nothing else can be done, Wave of Apathy guarantees that Che0nsu doesn't really need to be afraid of much of anything for the next turn, at least.
True. He can just play a Mage Scribe as well and not trigger the spell burst because of overdraw problems. If we look at what's left in Che0nsu's deck, he still has some very valuable cards. I can't believe that the Xyrella and Illucia are in the bottom for Illucia in the bottom for both players. Raise Dead, I believe he's drawn both of those. That's a bugged card at the moment. So ignore that on the tracker. Sorry about that. Like an Awakens clear turn.
And then you just drop Xyrella? Just to have something on the board, or Laughing Sister Tempo? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I wonder if you even heal at this point. Okay, just to give yourself more damage for Xyrella, but he doesn't actually have any burst healing options because he can't stick the Apotheosis on the Laughing Sister.
And at this point, you don't even need to go Mind Render. He's just winning. Again, the other thing about Illucia is your deck gets double dipped from, so you don't want to let yourself dip further into fatigue when he just has quite clearly the better hand by a vast margin.
And it's so good that it's also just too expensive for TIZS to really delete that much value when his own Illucia turn comes. And because of that, I don't think Che0nsu is pressed to go for Illucia whatsoever. Just take the removal, take the slow road. It's been slow route. It's been working for him so far. Now TIZS looks like it's gonna be the Onyxia turn.
It seems you need another lesson, mortals. Come forth!
And the Samuro can make quick work of this. Shadow Word Ruin gets rid of both minions, which is not ideal, but oh yeah, he could just take the value trade with Powered Feast. It's too good!
Yeah, how do you even go about this? Like, you can go Samuro Feast, although I guess you just accept that you're not sending the 9 damage, the 8 damage face on this turn, which is fine.
It's really not important to Che0nsu's overall game plan.
Yeah.
And the best part is, this way, he's actually spending the cheap cards from his hand, which you want to do to make their Elutia worse. You just keep the Ysera, the Yogg in your hand, so they can't really do anything when they get your hand other than, what, Ogremancer, maybe Shadow Word Ruin to clear just one minion. Not great.
No, that's a very good point. It's really just whether he goes for the Samuro at this point, and I guess you don't even have to worry about that. You can just save it for when you get another buff spell at some point.
I mean, why not just kill the one? I guess there's...
Yeah.
Both of us have no good reasons for either way, and that just goes to show you that Che0nsu is so far ahead that it feels like either route is winning for him. He is going to go ahead and play Xyrella here, which, to be fair, between Xyrella and Samuro, I think like he would rather not have his Xyrella stolen by Elutia. So that works too. Ay, ay, ay.
Psych split, you can get an 11-12 on your side of the board, and they have one also as well. That doesn't sound very good.
It's just not getting there. TIZS' last 3 cards are Inside Shadow Word Death and Venomous Scorpid. The Ranked and Raised Dead, again, are bugged, so it's only those 3. The Scorpid, without Plague of Death in the game anymore, I don't think there's any one card he can discover off that to do anything good enough. If it maybe gives him Raised Dead into Ysera.
Yeah, Raised Dead.
No time though. There's no
Soul Mirror. It doesn't even have mana anymore for Soul Mirror for that matter.
Okay, there's Raised Dead though. Oh no! Not the whelp! Okay, Death. You take those.
And then Tempo Whelp. Oh yeah. That's getting there.
Every time. This always gets there. It's just like a head crack.
Well, now honestly, I think we can start just pumping out the Shadow Form hero powers. If you need to milk extra value from your hand, that seems like a nice way to do so.
Sure. It lets him shoot a Scorpid and then Samuro to get rid of one Scorpid without actually trading a good minion into it, then the other one can get one thiefed.
He does still have Apo in the deck, so he could... I mean, obviously it draws him closer to Fatigue, but he could just go Thrive, Samuro, Apo to clear the board. Again, being further away from Fatigue is probably just more important than that.
It's just a nightmare to keep track of what small outs your opponents possibly have from this point onward. But if Che0nsu has been keeping perfect track, and players do have access to Deck Tracker, he should know that the generation from TIZS is well and truly gone at this point. After having seen the last Scorpid, the rest of his cards are just removal.
Okay, sure. Just deleting his entire board into Scorpids because who cares?
He doesn't need them.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Just doesn't matter.
So, TIZS does not even have enough health to heal back to have Xyrella do anything relevant.
Yeah.
And then he can Nightmare Death. Oh man, and then they have a bunch of tutus. Sounds terrible.
Nightmare Death.
I hate it.
Yeah, there's no mana for Xyrella then either, is there? Oi, he could, if he's been keeping track, go like Mind Render and then Thrive just to get your opponent closer to Fatigue. That does not win you the game, but it's kind of about as close as I can come up with still.
This is just the biggest checkmate there is. TIZS obviously is looking at this Elutia, racking his brains for any possible way it could give him a win condition, because his deck clearly does not have a win condition anymore. But by this point, even if he does get an Elutia, as long as Che0nsu is careful not to build a board on his side that loses to the Shadow Word Ruin in his own hand, he is absolutely fine. Because other than that card, Che0nsu doesn't actually have any removal for 7 mana or less.
Very good point. Insight, last card, completely useless for TIZS.
He is all gassed out. going for the Hail Mary because there are some cards in Che0nsu's hand that were generated looking for something good. But again, Che0nsu did not put anything to more than 4 attacks, so the Shadow Word Ruin is useless. TIZS could go for like Nightmare and Shadow Word Ruin.
And Apo if he wanted to as well, to clear off both the big minions. At the same time though, yeah, you want to play Auspicious Spirits because that's a big threat. I can't think of any 7-mana minions that can pull you back into this one, especially as the pool feels like it's gone a lot weaker actually since the core rotation. Yeah.
Gonna swap back so that Che0nsu doesn't dip from TIZZ's own deck and get him further in fatigue, but in the end, TIZZ is going to give it up. This seemed like very much a foregone conclusion from the turn that Che0nsu was able to avoid lethal and then completely heal back up with the Light Shower Elemental and Gift of Luminance play. But up until that point, it was a razor-thin margin for TIZZ to get close to lethal.
It really was. Full respect, obviously, to TIZZ doing what you're supposed to do, playing it out there. But I think you just called it right from the get-go, honestly. Che0nsu just in a good spot because of his higher value list. Didn't need most of it, to be perfectly honest. Just the Ogremancers there getting the job done. The extra C'Thun, the extra Yogg-Saron was not needed in the end. Just played the matchup very, very nicely. Even in that brief window in the middle where it looked like TIZZ might be able to get there, an incorrect lethal was called, which always shows you how close it was. But very nicely spotted by Che0nsu with the Light Shower plus Gift of Luminance to res him back up to his essentially full health there. Just a clean game.
I mean, Che0nsu went through a lot of discoveries quickly that I don't really know if he had any opportunities to take maybe a bit more defensive cards, just 1 or 2 choices, right? Because there were periods when his hand was chock full of value and lacking removal, and that's when you saw him go for the taunt and pray they don't have silence type play, and that was the one scary thing for Che0nsu. But I still have to say, very well spotted from him to go for that on the turn when he had seen both the dreams already played from TIZZ. And also very good to never play the Yogg because that was actively TIZZ's only win condition at the end.
Yeah, that was the small chance of getting it back if, you know, Rod of Roasting, if the small % chance that things go disastrously wrong. But well done there by Che0nsu winning the Priest Mirror. Obviously a huge deal, given that it brings us all the way to Game 5. Either player still in with a perfectly reasonable chance here, I think, of going all the distance. As to close things out, it's a reverse of what we saw at the start of the day with Che0nsu now on the Spell Mage, turning things around. Last time we obviously saw a decisive victory for TIZZ, and if APAC has been anything to go by so far, it's going to be a very quick Deck of Lunacy game and a win for Che0nsu.
It's true, even this week the Lunacy was just played as soon as it possibly could have been.
Yeah.
Of course, Che0nsu did a little bit of delaying with the Elucia, etc., but for TIZZ, I think he should still be feeling a bit scared because I think overall Mage is still favored in this matchup. Maybe Che0nsu's list is not quite the best for this matchup because he is running Cone of Cold, Netherwind Portal, where maybe you would rather have a heavier 4-cost slot in order to get the most 7 drops as opposed to 6-drop card draw. Off of Lunacy, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. It's very awkward as to how you want to construct these lists nowadays, because I think the way I don't like it is, like, Mask of C'Thun is not an especially strong Hearthstone card. If you can make it all go face, it's, you know, it's a cheap Pyroblast. It's a lot of damage, and it's pretty core to the game plan if you're going down the burn route. But if they have any kind of board presence, it's just not good enough for the mana cost, which is why I think if you don't have Deck of Lunacy, you really don't want to be playing the Mask of C'Thun. I just don't think it's a good enough Hearthstone card. With the Deck of Lunacy still at 4 mana, I do still think it's worth running at least 3 of the 4 of the 7-cost spells with Mask of C'Thun and Flame Strike. They're both just good enough to not be disastrously bad when you play them, but obviously when they go into Kodos, it is truly absurd. And so here it is, Game 5, the Priest once again for TIZZ. It has not been getting the job done so far, but he has one final chance at redemption here against the Mage.
And last week, I saw a very interesting mulligan from Warma where he just straight up kept font devolving against Priest, where the devolving looked like that's not necessarily a matchup where you want to keep it, but Warma was essentially saying there, even when Lunacy was on 2 mana, oh my god, Che0nsu is adorable, just adorable. It's like a kid in a candy shop. Yeah, Warma had it in his head with that keep that the minion game plan can just get there against Priest. Not necessarily sure if I agree with that, but that is still a way to go about the matchup even if you don't find the Lunacy, and that's currently what Che0nsu's hand looks like it does.
Yeah, if ever a non-Lunacy hand was going to get there, this is it. Card reduction with the Incantus Flow, a Pexis Blast at 4 mana now, Font for minions, Springwater Intellect to draw more cards from your deck. This is a premium hand that doesn't have Lunacy. It's still not the best thing you can do, but it's very close.
Not the best, but at the very least, you have knowledge of what you can draw here, and in Che0nsu's case, we're talking Fireballs for 2 mana, we're talking the other Pexis Blast for 3 mana, the Mask of Cthulhu for 5 mana, and free Ruined Orb. Devolving to, or you don't even need it. Actually, you're just devolving, right? To erase that awful, oh man.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you hit the Sethek, you're very happy indeed.
And you can probably just Ruined Orb the 2-1 and hold off on the Brain Freeze.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought process here is if you can, honestly, you kind of want to point Ruined Orb face later on in the game, just because you're not all in on the burn plan, obviously. There are still minion routes that can get there. You could still get Deck of Lunacy if it comes down very soon, but every point of burn is very, very important to hold on to in the matchup, in my opinion.
True. I might have been caster visioning the second Sethek, which is pretty much the only minion at this point in the game that you would rather have Brain Freeze than Ruined Orb to deal with.
Well, high tempo options at the very least for TIZS. Mage Scribe into a Corrupted Insights, well, 2 Corrupted Insights for that matter. He could put forward a pretty threatening presence of his own, but my god, is this start fast for Che0nsu, getting another Springwater that actually adds mana to his hand, let alone just refreshes it.
Raz as well doesn't even need to use the Ruined Orb now, and there's a lot of health on this. It's just difficult for Priest to get rid of, and TIZS is just going to proc his Spell Burst here, hopefully hit something better to deal with this. Okay, second Holy Smite is a good one.
5 mana Mask.
If any spell damage minion here, Cram Session and Raz become insane. Okay, not that spell damage minion.
Not that one,
that
but
could be so relevant later, right?
I mean, now saving that Ruined Orb seems like an absolutely genius play with, like, you save the Springwater, right? And you can do it with Mizaki as well. I mean, maybe I'm a little too all in on the OTK game plan here, but he basically has access to a complete OTK if he wants it, as long as Alusha doesn't mess things up.
And this turn is so sick as well. Arcane Knowledge, I forgot he just straight up runs secrets in his deck.
Yeah.
So okay, the cycle never stops. He can, what, another Apexis face? Probably more responsible, yes, to trade here. Play around Apotheosis a little bit. Keeps the cycle going with Starscryer. Really the only thing he was lacking was card draw, but the minions he got off the font helped that game plan, and even if it didn't, like, even if it weren't these two, the Mozaki can give him just a giant Cram Session, if not lethal.
Oh, it's so sick. Mizaki Cram Session to draw like 4 cards probably once it comes down. Oh, it's so disgusting.
However, this Alusha is worth thinking about. Definitely not this turn for TIZS. He has to kind of navigate these secrets first and deal with the board. But if Che0nsu gets overly greedy with the Mozaki, there is a punish available. And this is about the best clear that TIZS could have had this turn.
Huge deal here, managing to stabilize this board. Again, I'm not sure it's going to matter because another Cram Session, a Fireball as well. This Mizaki could just close things out.
Even if you just go Mozaki Combustion here and the first Cram Session draws 2, the second draws 3, will he overdraw after that? I don't think you can fit in the Ruined Orb until the end because you would overdraw if you are going to play both of the Cram Session.
I think I do like just cram. You draw 3 cards, that's probably good enough. Font of Power is a bit awkward because you're just looking at overdrawing at that point.
So he started not with Combustion but with the first Cram Session, which means that he's probably looking to Ruined Orb first now. Wait.
I think he's looking to Ruined Orb at the end maybe to kill it off. It's just about making sure he has enough hand space.
Sure. Yeah. So you can burn some font minions to clear this off.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
you just start with font.
Yeah, I think that's totally worth it. Good spot. And you can also just cash in the other Ruined Orb to face while you have the Mozaki guaranteed. He didn't even burn any minions. What am I talking about? He gets everything.
Yeah, I'll burn one off the
card
top.
in his deck.
Who cares about that, though? Another Apexis Blast as well. Honestly, I was kind of looking at just going for Ruined Orb while it was guaranteed to be like 7 damage at that point for 0 mana.
Me too.
Oi, oi, oi. If this isn't cleared right now, the game just ends.
Oh, does that mean it's Illusia?
I think so. You could start with Holy Smite if you wanted to do some of the damage.
Oi, oi, oi.
It's a big deal.
He gets to play a 1-drop, the Ruined Orb, and Apexis Blast. And of course, TIZS is playing with Che0nsu's deck, so the Apexis is active. It's actually still 1 damage short of killing the Mozaki, so is he forced into Fireball instead here? And missing
think he might be.
It hurts!
Yeah.
But he's starting with the draw, so that means he is gonna Fireball. He's just deliberately trying to overdraw Che0nsu, get him closer to fatigue.
Yeah, picking the worst card here. Oh yeah, priest cards as well. Shadow Earth Death, I guess, does literally nothing.
Sure. But it still means that Che0nsu is left with a lot of burst in the hand when he gets it back. And also, it's not like TIZS gave him a terrible hand. This is pretty good.
Yeah, Apotheosis deleted from the hand is a big deal because he knows the amount of healing is pretty limited now, and still huge amounts of burst. Obviously, that was crucial there for TIZS. You know, if he didn't have the Illusion, the game literally just ended. So make no mistake, well timed and important for him to have found. Does still look like Che0nsu is probably going to be able to get there, though.
If we just count up all the damage, it's 10 from the Apexis. The 6-8 looks like it's just going to stick this turn. 16, and then the masks, of course, they're 20 given no other minions on board. So it's just that the masks are unreliable. That's the only problem for Che0nsu at the moment, because he doesn't have minion removal. Is looking for a Miracle off the Scorpid.
The chain can keep going. You're still looking for that Shadow Earth Ruin or Shadow Earth Death.
Agreed.
Quickly.
Like, even if he sent all the other spells and the trades into this Amalgam, I think it's just 7, so probably not worth it. TIZS going to go for Mankrik instead here, except that he is probably taking 6 to the face. And it is not ideal, but if he is going for a minion game plan, I think I would have liked to see the Ooze just come down as well.
Sure. Yeah, just anything to stop damage going to face with the mask.
Oh my goodness. Look at this hand. So much damage.
Yeah, losing the Flame Strike was kind of weird because now these minions can potentially soak up a lot.
True. I think at the very least, the Scorpid has to go. But you can't really point anything that you would not rather point face at it. So Che0nsu gonna go see what's in the box first. Coerce with Mask. If you had more mana, that would be pretty cool. Thanks. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it just works right now. Why did I think that was Execute?
Well, it is until it isn't. And then it's just kill a minion. Yeah, a very big deal. Again, the Poisonous has got to go, and that's a way to do it without having to commit any burst damage. Still full suite available, and still needing to clear off this 6-8, or it's just going to keep swinging face again and again and again.
TIZS trying again for the Shadow Word Death Soul Mirror.
Oh,
that's gotta be the pick.
That's
so
huge.
Good here with the Holy Smite, and he gets to stick a Lifesteal minion. This is game changing.
Is he clutching this?
He might be able to.
I've just counted.
However, I mean, he still has Lunacy for 4 cards if he wants it.
I haven't even been considering him in the game, to be perfectly honest, for like since the start. Like, that Mozaki just looked like it was way too much, but I think he might actually be turning this one around against all the odds.
And he actually saves the Holy Smite here just to have some more spot removal. I am not sure I agree with that because it feels like Mask of C'Thun is very scary at the moment. So more minions equals less damage to face is what I think.
Yeah.
But certainly the spot removal could come in handy for that last font minion he hasn't seen yet.
Huge draw here though on the combustion, clears off a bunch of damage. Che0nsu gets to kill off Mancrick, gets to stick some minions on the board. Damage goes face. Mask of C'Thun is going to start pointing everything to the face as well. You know, it looked like there was a glimmer of hope there for TIZS, and maybe, as I believe that was Apotheosis, the glimmer is still alive, but this is getting so tight.
This is extremely scary. For TIZS now, obviously Blade Master Apo right now doesn't heal him for much, but question is it going to heal him for more later? Because Che0nsu is playing a spell deck. There's very few minions that actually go wide on the board. So TIZS in the end just deciding to go for the ooze on the board. He uses Condemn very aggressively to just have the most minions to soak up Mask of C'Thun possible.
Brain Freeze as well, fantastic. That clears off more health from the board. Oh! Okay. 2 for 2 on Raz, not bad.
So because you got Raz here, there's a question as to whether you think you can greed the Mask of C'Thun, because we could see this turn be Brain Freeze Ping and say the 3-drop and Fireball face. And then there's a world where all the C'Thun damage goes face. Of course, it can go wrong if TIZS just plays more than 2 health next turn.
Yeah.
So Che0nsu choosing to be less greedy here, I think, is more reasonable in the end.
And now TIZS can take the clear. Obviously, to heal up for 6 on this turn, plus the hero power. Oh, yeah, sure, 10 actually with the double Apo.
Oh, Che0nsu is so stressed out. Who can blame him though? But TIZS is out of gas. He is just top decking from this point on. Yeah, Shadow or Death for Che0nsu might get there. He gets Solarian! Oh my goodness! He's not just in this. It feels like he's winning this.
Oh, and imagine
Death Mask.
For TIZS, this is the death that he put in Che0nsu's hand all those turns ago when he was discovering the option off of Ruined Orb. And it's the card that deletes his lifesteal here.
True. Okay, maybe the heal for 10. I mean, I was looking at it as a snap play, but maybe it wasn't the play. He could have healed for 8 instead of 12, but been immune to the death.
I think he just forgot, in all honesty, when he taps his head there.
Oi, oi, oi.
Time may pass, but the dream is eternal.
Got a bunch of cards left in the deck. That's Ysera off the top. That's huge. Means he can delay the Prime coming down.
And it's a lot more health on the board. Again, that is one of those crucial draws. Devolving Missiles can lower it drastically.
And really, all he wants is minimum health on this, so maximum C'Thun damage can go face, but that is so much health for a 6-drop. Yikes.
How is this still a game?
I don't know, Derek. It's still so close.
It's so close. Like, you have to bump into this now. You can't give them 2 more spells.
I agree. Che0nsu's last 2 cards are Primordial Studies and Flame Strike. The Flame Strike probably earmarked to deal with the Ysera minions, and responsibly, he also has a 3rd card, which is the Solarian Prime, and that looks like it's gonna have to be the one to carry the game home.
Well, it only has 1 in deck, right? So one of those cards is incorrectly showing, I think, right? I think the Flame Strike was burned earlier, right? So I'm pretty sure it's just the Studies as the last remaining card, which is a good card to get. You know, another Solarian Prime is a huge deal because he needs these big effects. He is completely gassed out except for what he can discover.
Imagine Lunacy, your only card in hand and nothing in deck. What world do we live in, Derek? It's just so strange.
It's true lunacy. So, Steward of Scrolls and Solarian are really what we're looking for here. Is pretty much the only outs. Like, there aren't any big spell damage minions anymore.
Is here taking some time to consider his turn, because I think it was honestly a very real consideration to just not play a minion so that the Prime could not be immediately shuffled in the deck.
Yeah.
It's worth thinking about. In the end, though, I don't think his hero power gets there without actually killing the Solarian because Che0nsu is on full health. But, oh my goodness!
Potion's insane!
That's the best possible outcome for this mana. Oh, he hates to see it.
He could go again.
Oh my God,
Fireball!
Potion? Wait, is it potion or probably fireball, right? Oh man, I don't know. I don't know, Derek.
Like, he could save the potion and just go Solarian again, potion again.
Yes. I mean, yeah, you just don't play the other Solarian here. With the guaranteed 8 with the fireball, even if everything this board gets cleared, he has the other Solarian with fireball, is certainly tempting.
Goes with the fireball. I can respect it. Just all in now. Put everything on the board. Get those Solarian primes. And hope that this can close it out. My God.
He is trying to force an Awakens into Emerald Drake here, which also clears TIZS' Laughing Sister. Che0nsu forces it out. And we have time traveled back to 2020, Derek. Games are decided by Solarian Prime.
I wouldn't have it any other way. The APAC special.
You don't pick the one.
I don't think I've ever been so happy to see it end this. I can't even look.
All right. This is it, Che0nsu. Your moment to shine. Slam it onto the board. Not even thinking. What's in the box? Fireball?
That's way to start. Oh,
that's bad.
Nothing.
That's bad.
Nothing. Hello.
That's bad.
Fatigue. Fatigue is terrible. And
that's
decent.
Ah.
The other Prime has to get there. This is just not going to do it. Is testing for Entity.
Ooh.
Idol? No, he doesn't know if it's Counterspell, but he can test Counterspell.
Right.
He just slammed the Nightmare. Yeah, it's not really getting better at this point.
I have so much in store for you.
Okay, that survives the Condemn. That's the important part.
Okay, Plague will clear it after he takes the trade.
Yeah.
And the lifesteal is huge. Che0nsu, second Prime or bust. Oh my goodness.
This is it. I mean, the Drake is really annoying, actually, to be honest, just because it soaks up targets from Solarian Prime while it's on the board.
Ooh. Oh, man. What's it gonna be?
No!
Ay, ay, ay. Not good enough. Not good enough.
Terrible! Terrible!
Not good enough.
Oh!
He's Ping Mage. And he's lost. I don't think this gets there.
I think in the end, TIZS and what looks like an orca or a killer whale as his soft toy there, I think have just crept over the finish line.
That was such a nail biter. Che0nsu, he cannot deal lethal next turn. And that means even after the freeze goes off, that means TIZS will have at least the poison to get rid of the Solarian. So it just never gets there. And in the most exciting series of the day, of course it's only been the first one, but it feels like it'll be the most exciting series of the day. TIZS takes it 3-2. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, such a nail-bitingly close one. And, you know, as I've been saying, TIZS has struggled to make, I think, a real splash here. Just a very quiet entity in Grandmasters, doesn't have a social media presence, not a streamer, at least in English. But if ever he was going to solidify his name in Grandmasters, that was the series in which to do it. What a staggeringly close one. Like, even as early as turn 1, look at Che0nsu's reaction there with the draw he got. It was absolutely brutally strong. The Mozaki as well in the mid-game looked like it was just a lock. But it was the Alusha in the end. We can start to ask questions for Che0nsu. Should he have been more greedy with like the refreshing spring water? He could have set up what was close to an OTK, very likely, with Mozaki. But I guess in the end, it was probably still vulnerable to the same thing, which was exactly Alusha.
Yeah, that was the key turn in the middle. And let's not forget, second to the last turn at the end, he could have chosen to take yet another potion and guarantee a third Prime in the deck. Certainly it was slower for that one turn, but we could see that the Fireball did not end up doing anything this game. Oh man, so many different paths to have taken. I don't fault Che0nsu whatsoever for the mulligan he took and for just not going lunacy. It came into the hand too late. But all eyes should be on TIZS right now because that was just such a